Okay, it's been like nearly an hour since they cut off the second part of the Mueller actually, because you don't spell Mull, Muell, you spell Mull as in mole or whatever, Mull. Mule, Muel, L, which is what he is, which is why I don't think they describe him as that. But we've got to go all the way to like an hour 36 or something, and then we get to Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, giving a special speech. Where is the start? Round a minute and a half. Here we go. And I think he's gender fluid. He's a gender fluid, the first gender fluid Prime Minister of any country, I'm pretty sure. Except maybe King Henry. Was he the one who dressed up as a lady? I can't remember. But anyway, yeah.
Alright everyone, I was looking for info as to exactly what that live picture was. It looks
he's
like the Canadian Prime Minister not quite done in our nation's capital.
Yeah, he's gender fluid. So first he has to decide whether he's feminine or masculine today. And yeah, then he makes his decision and he comes out. So we're just waiting for the transgender. I'm pretty sure he's transgender. I can't remember. Canadian President Justin Trudeau. That's right, gender fluid, as I mentioned. And yeah, he's feminine and masculine, depending on who you ask. But it's all really ultimately his decision. So you ask him, and he makes his decision on which one he is, and then yeah, you find out who he is today. And he looks today to be, I think, masculine. Oh no, yes, masculine. Okay, a bit of French.
A productive visit here in Washington, during which I met with President Trump. It was a chance for us to talk about how we can continue to work together to improve the lives of working people and grow our economies. Trade was, of course, top of mind.
Yes.
With over $2 billion,
he's got the top of mind, the masculine voice. So he's made his choice to be masculine today. Canada-US relationship.
And businesses. A strong economic partnership between our two countries to make ends meet. That's why we worked incredibly hard with our North American partners to secure a new NAFTA, which will protect our supply chains, create new opportunities for people, and grow the middle class. C'est un accord qui est bon pour le Canada et bon pour les Canadiens. Notre gouvernement a donc sur two countries. For instance, Canada is a stable and reliable source of uranium for American civil nuclear reactors. So at the end of the day, maintaining access is important for Canada and the US alike.
Hang on, pause. I want to ask a question. Why would America need to source any uranium from Canada if it's got enough to sell 20% or whatever to Russia, according to the deal that Hillary Clinton did? The deal that she did, selling 20% of American uranium to Putin. I mean the Russians. I mean USSR. The Soviets. The ones that conquered everything, and then we had to ask for permission to join them and keep it all confidential, and we had to sign their rules. And just like the space station, you know who your boss is when you've got to receive and give commands and prompts or questions or just converse when doing commands, prompts, and controllings of the spacecraft, shuttles, instruments, or whatever space entity, vehicle, box, tin thing you're in is in Russian. Labeled in Russian, named in Russian, and spoken about or commanded, prompted, or sequenced in Russian. And that's just, in emptiness or vacuum. What about the ice? The Antarctic Treaty, where Russia was the first ones there. I think Germany were next. But eventually it became a treaty where everyone was allowed, but not before signing with Russia. And I'm pretty sure they are the soldiers that are occupying and in charge of defending and controlling the Arctic as well. The Arctic snow cap, the Arctic ice. That's right. And what was the other one? Let me see. Oh, that's right. Drilling. Russia is in control of the depth. They have the deepest drill point known. It's 10 miles, 12 kilometers, and they got there and it went colder. They expected to get hotter considering they were getting closer to the magma or somewhat, whatever they tell us. But it got colder, and they got to a point where it was, roughly 10 miles, 12 kilometers, and in about the same amount of time it took them to get to that distance, they could only achieve millimeters, if inches, more than that 12 kilometers, 10 mile depth. And no one's ever drilled deeper, and no one ever can. It's the deepest point anyone can drill, and drill bits, no matter what you make them out of, will not penetrate any further. But I will digress and say, we got the Spanish Inquisition, the Spanish Armada, you got the Spanish fleet, you got this West India Trade Company, you've got all this going on, you've got Britain, who basically went around and colonised everybody into the Commonwealth and brought the Roman Catholic Church to each culture that wasn't civilized like the Queen is civilized, breeding within her own, family bloodline, her ancestors, that is. I don't know about Prince Philip and how he's her second cousin or whatever, but I think that's just a rumour. Who knows? Someone might, but Russia still owns their land. So does China. So does Korea, North Korea, I should say. Now, who are the superpowers? Well, we've got America. They're the world police. We've got England. They are the co-founders of the control. And who are Canada? Well, Canada are a bunch of Frenchmen who went over and occupied a bunch of Eskimo type people, because that's the sort of area they live in, cold, freezing Arctic temperatures in the Alaskan mountains and whatnot. And they took that little chunk on the end there, which is what? Oh, part of America, which is 3 parts to America. You've got that, Alaska, you've got America, which is Central America actually, and then you've got South America, and then you've got Canada up there. Well, so America owns that part, which is the closest, and the furthest point is like 50 something kilometers or miles from each other of the most northern 2 continents, being the whole of the, what do they call it, American, no, was it, the American, whatever it is, thingo, where they clump all different countries, countries, together and call them like the Euro-American something. And, and therefore, you have Canada breaking them up, so therefore, what? Well, Alaska isn't connected to America properly, is it? No, it's not. So, it's actually the closest point also to Russia. Oh, America is that close to Russia? Yeah, about 50 miles. Then Russia still occupies everything. The only thing it has lost is Ukraine, really, which chose to join back with Russia. It chose sovereignty, but then chose to join back with Russia, but was stopped by them, Russia decided to make a war and force them to come back, and instead of them deciding to come back and... Oh, hang on. Oh, no. That doesn't make any sense. So, of course, it wasn't Russia then. Yeah? That makes sense. So, the Crimea, or whatever it is, Ukraine, stayed neutral, not part of, back as part of Russia. Therefore, what? It's now part of Western civilization, Americanized culture, which is Russia's footstool into it, if you understand. They still want to be part of Russia. They wanted to stay with Russia. They were stopped by America. America has nothing over Russia. If America had it over Russia, Russia wouldn't still control, still be the number one founder, all-time conqueror, and then treaty distributing, sanction putting, sharing, nation of people that own Russia, which is the biggest body of land connected to Asia and India and the Middle East and Europe and all the rest, and they still have their part, which is still called Russia, and they still have their soldiers on the Arctic. They still have their labels, names, and language spoken in the vacuum above the magnetosphere. They still have control, that's right, control over the Antarctic, which they made everyone sign a treaty to join, which basically says it's just a gag order, signing a piece of paper that says you will not tell anyone anything about this place that hasn't gone through us and okayed by us, or redacted, twisted, tripped up by us first, okay? And as far as telling anybody about the construct, it's what we say it is, and that's it. That's what you tell them. As if any information you find out contrary to it, which you will, because it is, you will keep to yourself, you and your colleagues or anyone else who is under the gag order, and not share it with anybody who is what? Educated. Yes, no, educated people are allowed to know the truth about any part of the earth which is Russian controlled, treaty shared, and under gag order use. Therefore, who rules the world? Russia. It's so obvious and simple. If you were going to rule the world, what would you do? You make yourself the bad guy. You put someone else in place as the police. You put someone else in place as the conqueror, so that everyone that they conquer, if anyone gets peeved at it, oh well, they're just going to blame, Britain. Oh well, then they start getting nasty and fighting back. Oh well, then we'll just make America the superpower because they're the police. And what are they going to do? Well, they'll just force everybody to do what Russia wants them to do. Well, but how does Russia look like the bad guy then? Because we have Russia be the boogeyman, and we have the police keep Russia in check, and the people appeased and happy, and quiet little sheep and lambs that will just follow along, nice little slaves, getting their education, not knowing that all the treasures and all the secrets of the world are stored up in Russia. That's why the White House is concrete painted white, and all their buildings, all their monuments are white concrete. If it wasn't brought from a quarry or somewhere else that was, usually over in Egypt, somewhere in the Middle East, which were leftovers that Russia left after the USSR, the Soviets went through and looted a lot of it, took it all back to Mother Russia, and the gold they got, well, just have a look at the parliament houses or buildings of Russia. Do they look anything like what you would consider a parliament house? You might see a bit of marble, you might see a lot of concrete, you won't see too much Rio because it's all buried in there. But if you look in Russia, what do you see? You see golden staircases, golden door handles, golden doors, gold everything. You'll see statues that are like them full on dolomite carved statues that are, in Russian political points of power. And you look at the rest of the world, and what is it? Concrete with hidden steel and a veneer. Yeah? Anything special is usually made by a person who wanted to make it by themselves. And, that's fine. But Russia's got all the goods, and anything that you think's out there, you think, oh, but look, they've got the statue of David there, the Madonna. No, well, if you grab yourself a sledgehammer or a jackhammer and you start chiseling away, you're going to find out that they're Rio filled. Okay? If you remember, Rome made concrete, right, that is better than the concrete we make today. Stronger, lasts longer. Okay? So they took that technique, put the Rio and everything in there, because it's all falling apart now. It's been a little bit too long. It's stronger than ours, but our concrete doesn't go off and become its hardest strength until 100 years. But that's good quality concrete. Concrete that is not so good won't last that long. But it'd have an earlier going off point. And the stuff that was made by the Romans, their concrete, well, a lot of it still stands today. Some of it's falling away, earthquakes, a lot of movement. Most of it's been shifted and moved around so that it's not in its origin, because usually its origin was lower than what it is now. That's been brought up or brought away from where it was, because the place where it was is now being dammed and filled with water, so you can't see the remnants of the ruins after they took all the goodies away. What you do get to see is replicas that, if investigated, are found out to have rebar inside them. That goes for Stonehenge, that goes for the statues that ISIS went around bashing up, all through the Middle East and all that. It goes for a lot of the stuff, right? So everyone looks at so Britain and the Roman Catholic Church, they're the ones that, put us all into this system of you go to school and then, and you have your set of rules that you have to live by, and then you get a job and you pay your taxes, and that goes to the Commonwealth, because you've got to pay for the land. And, they're the ones that, they conquered you. They didn't. They civilized you, apparently. They call it Crown Land. Why do they call it Crown Land? Because the Queen holds the stakes. For who? Russia. It's Russia's land. They were commissioned to go out and be the, what would you call them? The diverters or the converters. I call them the diverters, because you can't convert somebody from a state into another state without diverting them from that state into the other. So if to convert means to what? Force to change. But they didn't. They diverted. So they, what? Enticed to change. So they asked, they sort of persuaded through gentle lamb beast, the beast system of the world that came out of the water, maritime law, that spoke like a lamb. Yeah? Well, that's maritime law. That's the beast, and that's the system we live under, and it spoke like a lamb. That's right, because Jesus is the ultimate lamb, the sacrificial lamb of God. And it spoke like a lamb because it spoke of what? The Bible. That came from a biblical stance. It lied a lot about it, it hid a lot of it, it changed a lot and taught a lot of lies and added a lot of things and took a lot of things away. Like God's name, it took that out, added the cross, which wasn't true. That's Tammuz worship. If you look into your history, you'll find out that the word storus originally means upright stake, pole of piece of wood or tree that something may be hung upon. That's what it means. One piece, a stake, right? Jesus was hung upon a stake. You look at the Shroud of Turin. Look at where the blood runs down his arms. You can tell he had his arms above his head. Okay, put together and nailed together as one, with one nail, right? If you look into the Dark Ages, which were actually not the Dark Ages, they were more like the Enlightenment ages, where the women were staying at home and the men were going to work, and the women, because they had spare time, would learn Latin because they wanted to read the Bible. So they started to read the Bible, and then they started to tell their husbands, because their husbands were the head of the household, and so they told their husbands what they had discovered in the Bibles. Things like the cross. So their husbands, under their wife's, prodding and her sort of gentle persuasion, would go to the bishops and go to the priests and go to those who were in control of the papacy and the word of God, and keeping it in Latin so that people couldn't understand what was true and what was false. They had to trust the priests, the popes, the bishops, and the pontiffs and the Pharisees, the synagogue of Satan, all them guys. They had to trust them because they couldn't speak Latin, and they didn't have time to learn because they were worked when they were young, because they were slaves. Yeah? Okay, so they were taught what? They were taught the British English and how to speak proper and all this sort of thing. Not Latin. It's a form of Latin because it's how they constructed the language, but it's not Latin. Latin was harder to learn. The women had time to learn it, told their husbands things like, the cross isn't in the Bible. It says torch a stake. It's a stake. And when they said crucify him, they didn't say that. They said to the stake with him. Execute him is what they said to Pontius Pilate. So they took that, and when Constantine came through, he saw a cross in the sky when he looked into the sun after a battle, which would happen with sweat in your eyes after, fighting, like you fought for like all day, like hours and hours. And he looked up into the sky and he saw a cross in the sky, and he remembered the prophecy that his mum told him about the sign that would be seen in the sky that would be the symbol of the church forever of God, but she meant like Gaia, the mother, the Queen of Heaven, or the Mother Nature and all this crap. Instead, he took it as he was ordained to see this symbol, so therefore he took it to the bishops to make the symbol a place of power, which is the cross. He got, look at that beautiful rainbow. Constantine got the 12 bishops, or 14 of them, it's 12 or 14 bishops of Nicene, minus two. Two of them wouldn't go along with it, but he got the rest of the bishops from the Council of Nicene to go along with changing the word stauros to mean cross instead of stake. Now, to punish these women who learnt Latin and then were teaching the truth and showing people the bishops' lies, the lies that the bishops were teaching, what did they do to them? What did they do to the women who were speaking out? What do you think they did? What do they call it, the Dark Ages? Remember the catacombs where the bishops and the priests and all that,